Okay.
Alright, hello everyone, this is BDY Shade, Morrison, and I'm here with Jake and Aaron, and
Hi. Oh, hi there.
upon request, we're going into more detail about things in the hangar, like how to equip equipment, contracts and how that reputation thing work, and just general stuff you do here before you actually get into the game. Alright, to start out with, these 3 slots are very obviously the ships that you're going to drag into combat with you. You unlock a 3rd one at rank 12 of any faction. And the way you switch them and or buy new ships is you click on this little tab and it brings up a technology tree for your ships. To buy a ship, obviously you click on the little credit thing when you have the required reputation, and it'll be purchased forever. There's no way you can sell ships or anything like that, and they just sit here taking up space, or actually not really taking up space whatsoever. And if you ever want to go back, say you have a new friend, like me, that even though you guys didn't do it for me, come in and you want to play with your tier 1 ships again, so your friend doesn't feel lonely when you guys are playing with your tier 3s.
Hint, hint, Morrison sucks at the game.
I came in later than them. You click on the slot you want the ship in there. Boom. Now I have all 3 of my ships back at tier 1. And all sorts of good things will follow. And it'll also queue you with respect to the ships you have in your combat slots. So even if I owned a tier 4, as long as it isn't in my combat slot, I'll be tiered with tier 1 losers. Okay. Next on our agenda is equipment. Now when you click on a ship, you see all these different slots. Now, the way you equip a weapon is you click on the slot and it'll bring up this little panel right here. And you can sort it for non-researched items. What research means is if you have a high enough reputation with a certain faction, you'll be able to buy it. Otherwise, no bueno, you can't use it. Don't even bother thinking about it. So I usually don't have that checked. If you're looking for something to buy, then don't check the panel hide shop, and then you can see what the best you can buy is. For tier 1, about the best you can afford in the store is Mark II, unless you have reputation with a special faction. And you double click an item to buy it. I'm not going to do this in this example, however, because I don't feel like using my credits on tier 1 guns right now that I have better than. Or you can hide items that are already equipped in other ships. If you have a gun on another ship, say I want to equip this overcharged pulse laser I have on my frigate, double click it and it'll ask you if you want to strip it from the one ship and put it on the others. So yeah, it's unfortunate that you have to buy multiple guns if you want all of your guns to have lasers or rail guns or whatever, but it's also, they make it really easy to swap the weapons back and forth. The slots back here are for missiles. Generally I just buy Mark II ones. Just ignore that I have Mark I ones on my tier 1 ship right now. And just auto replenish ammo, and you don't need to worry about that slot ever again. As for these slots, these are active modules and they bind to 1 and 2. And for me at least, what I like taking on my fighter classes is I take a hull thing, which is an instant use repair that has quite a long cooldown, and flares. Flares will instantly get rid of missiles for you, and the recharge rate is 10 seconds, so you pretty much always have them up, and it's fantastic.
Sorry to interject, but do flares pertain to guided or unguided? How does that work?
Both.
Did we find out the delineation?
They do both. Oh wait, nope, it's only guided.
It's only guided, so
It's only
unguided
guided.
can still hit you.
Unguided in the sense that, like, the interceptor missiles can still hit you, because they're like the
Right.
green shells in Mario. They just keep going in a straight line.
Right, the fire and forget ones are the ones you can't really forget about if the enemy has flares, right?
Right. And then there's they also don't deflect the true guided ones, the ones like the Jericho ships have, that they actually steer it themselves. Welcome back, Jake. If it is Jake. Anyway.
I'll check.
So yeah, those are those 2 slots. You sort them by this tab. You can have them in hull. Shields, which instantly restores your shields. And has... Wow, actually that doesn't have as much as a cooldown as the hull one. That's kind of fancy. Tactical are flares, at least for tier 1. Scouting, there's nothing for tier 1, and I don't really know too much about it. Things that affect a target, like reduce their speed or their armor temporarily or their resistances. Command, these are more for frigates, and these will give auras that buff the people around you, and they are very nice, very nice. Support, those are more buffs and more frigate oriented. And engineering, not entirely sure what they do. They probably give you like mini boosts to speed.
Sorry, I could probably fill that part in.
Okay, go ahead.
If that, I mean, just if you don't mind me interjecting again.
Nah, it's fine. You're here for a reason.
Engineering is generally, for right now, the only thing engineering pertains to is warp gate, which allows, I think it's tier 2s only that can do this so far, but it allows for a ship to set up a warp gate, which has a hull strength, so it can be destroyed, and it's only for a certain amount of time. But what that warp gate does is any friendly ship that passes through it is like a micro warp, and it shoots you 5,000 meters forward, so it's a great way of getting most of your interceptors to the front lines immediately.
That's
about the only thing for engineers.
It's also a good, like, oh shit button for getting you the frick out of a sticky situation.
Yeah, I've been foiled so many times by enemies that do that.
Alright, the final slot on tier 1 ships is passive modules, and they come in upgrades to your hull that increases your hull thickness, or how many hit points you have or whatever, increase to your shield size, weapons, which in this case all it does is reduce main weapon spread, which makes your guns a lot more accurate at increased range, and finally tactical, which I'm not sure what those do because they're not appearing for me. Aaron, do you know?
Which, what are you looking for here?
Tactical in passive modules.
Oh, in the passive modules. Oh, okay, good. I was wondering if you were going to use those. Tactical. The only thing that I'm seeing that shows up in tactical is a personal use. Let me check. Yeah, what it is it's the only thing that I'm seeing as far as tactical goes is emergency barrier, which begins at tier 2 use, and what happens is when the hull strength reaches a critical level, which is less than 15% of your hull strength, a green shield automatically envelops your ship for a few seconds, and what happens is it renders you invulnerable for that time period. So it's kind of a nan and a boo boo, you can kill me passive module.
Okay.
So, pretty useful. You'll see that a lot.
Oh, those are on tier 2 and up. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Alright, now as you see when I switch over to my tier 2 ship, there's a lot more equipment slots. Like, we get an extra missile slot, and by pressing Z or X, you switch back and forth between up to 2 different missile types. So on one, I have armor piercing, and on the other one, I'll take EMP, so I can take someone's shields out really quickly with an EMP missile, and then immediately switch over and fire an arming piercer to finish them off before they can recharge their shields or anything. Over here, we have weapon mods, which will slightly change the damage of your weapon or increase the damage of it, depending on which mods you take, and they're not active at the same time, and you switch back and forth between them. Like the one I have right now is, it changes my damage type on railguns to thermal damage instead of the kinetic, and it increases the damage by 4%, which is quite nice. Finally, the newest slot we have is Capacitor Tuning, which, your channel. As far as I can tell right now, all it does is either increase your maximum energy, which energy is used whenever you use modules or afterburners, or it increases your energy regeneration, and personally I'm going to favor the regeneration over the capacity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a good one. Well, there's other stuff too that you can find, you know, and once again this comes into the specialization of the sub factions. You know, there's the different options. just for future reference, I know you might not see this right now, but in later tiers, you eventually get shield mods, hull mods, and tier 3s, I think you get engine mods later on too. So you get to fill those up, and those are almost like a second passive module, but they have different effects. And you'll get those as you play along.
Okay. The final thing to watch out for in the equipment panel is, say you're looking to upgrade your Mark tier. They're a bit tricky about this. I know I bought extra weapons falling for this concept, but if you look, they separate ones you've owned into an entirely different panel from the same cannon that you haven't bought. So I've gone along the list and said, oh, it's lower in the list, it must be better than what I have, and went ahead and bought an extra of the same gun and felt like a complete idiot afterwards. So just be careful you don't buy multiples of the same gun and waste your hard-earned credits. Otherwise, yeah, that's the equipment panel. Another easy way of getting to the ship panel and looking down your faction tree is this tab right here. Next up is skills. Skills works as a talent system that you unlock a new tier of it for every reputation level that you go up to 12, and for every tier you can equip one specific skill. So right now all I've been leveling up is Federation, so of course all my skills are in it. And I don't know, later game you might try and leveling up the different faction reputations to mix and match your skills, but that takes a lot of time. So yeah, that's that panel. Contracts. Contracts is the easiest way to level your reputation with a faction, and how it works is you can have up to 3 contracts signed at one time, and they'll give you small mini tasks to complete in PvP or PvE. In order to take a contract, you double click it within your faction and it'll keep track of it, and if you do it you get a small credit reward and a large reputation reward. Once you complete a faction contract, you get a time limit before you can take it again, and as you rank up you'll get more and more contracts that you can possibly take, and the reward increases, but so does the difficulty. If you ever said, well, I hate my faction because it sucks, have no fear, because you can very easily change it to either the other sub-faction within yours by clicking on it and then signing over a permanent contract with them for, I don't know if it increases as you go up in reputation or whatnot, or the more times you do it, but for me right now it's 60k. And the same applies for if I wanted to switch over to Jericho or... yeah. Now, Aaron, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if you switch over to a different faction, you can still use your old faction ships.
Yeah, you maintain your current rating with a faction or a sub-faction, and the current rating that has unlocked ships so far will still allow you to use ships. So what you'll see oftentimes is people that have switched factions to gain the best of both worlds, or the best of 3 worlds. So someone might be rolling with, they put a lot of time and money into this, so don't think it's an easy thing, but they might be rolling with like a Federation Interceptor, a Jericho fighter, and an Empire frigate.
And it's even more complex than that, because then they can mix and match their skills to optimize whatever their playstyle is, and they can also, going back to the guns that can only be bought with faction rep, once you have a certain amount of faction rep, they can get, say, the best Federation rapid-fire plasma cannons on their super-duper Jericho fighter. So it's a very, the higher up you get, the more complex it gets, but at least starting out at tier 1, it's a fairly simple concept, and I recommend sticking with one faction for a while and just farming money and reputation with that one until you're more comfortable with the different mechanics of the game. And to end this video, you may have the question, okay, so all of my ships now have Mark II guns, what the heck do I do with all my crappy Mark I guns? And this is a really easy solution. What you do is you click on the warehouse tab, and you can see at first with everything, you can see everything in the shop that's possible, or if you have the compatible with ships, anything that your ships can possibly equip, which is a bit ridiculous. And actually not very helpful at all, since the equipment panel pretty much sorts it out in a much neater way. But you go over into My Items, and if you look here, you can see all of the different items you own. So you can scroll through the different panels and say, oh hey, I'm not using my Tier 1 Mark 1 railgun. You double click it to sell it, and you never have to look at its ugly face again. It's very nice. And it gives you a not a huge credit boost, but it's not bad either. And so yeah, I think that covers everything. Aaron, can you think of anything else that might need to be added?
No, not really. I mean, you got pretty much all of it. For being a Tier 1 player, I must say that was a pretty in-depth description. You've clearly grasped everything that is to be grasped about the intricate details of the hangar bay and everything about those ships. One word of advice is, as you do progress, and if you choose, it's in my personal opinion and from my experience, it's probably best that you find a faction and you stick with it, because each faction has certain mobility factors to it and certain maneuverability. So what happens is you'll generally adapt a playstyle with a certain faction ships, and it may be more you might find it more difficult to switch off and on between different faction ships if you try and go for a mixed bag of vessels to fly. So sticking with a faction will help you not only learn what you need to do in order to succeed as those ships, but it will also help you learn to master those ships, and you may find yourself playing those ships in very successful roles that they may not have originally been meant to play as, which is fine. So it's all about your preference, but that's all I've got to say.
About the only benefit or early game benefit I can see to mixing and matching factions is the blue weapons that you can buy in the store, which is the best store-bought weapons, are only available through faction rep. So it can be a bit discouraging if you're rolling railguns on your fighter and say, oh hey, I want blue railguns, and then you go to buy them and realize, oh wait, I need level 6 with the raid faction in order to buy them. But it's not something to stress out too much about, because you do find weapons as bonuses for endgame that can be either green, which are a little bit worse than the blue ones, or even purple, which are the best of, and you can't get them anywhere else except for endgame bonuses. So I wouldn't worry too much about the faction or the reputation bought guns. And with that, I think I covered anything. Tune in next time, and Aaron is going to teach you all about flying into wall. No, wait, no, that's my job. Anyway, have a nice day. TTFN.